is National Church Multiplication Sunday. And you may wonder what that is. Some of you may be like, I've never heard of that. It's because it's never happened before. Today, churches all around our country, hundreds of churches all around the country are going to be gathered today to focus on church multiplication, to focus on the harvest. As we saw there in that passage from Matthew 9:37, Jesus said, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few." But what does that mean? Why is church multiplication important? What is the harvest that we're talking about? Well, the harvest is the reality that many people in this country, even in our own neighborhoods, are still far from Christ. Is that a shock to anybody? No? Okay. You awake with me? You with me so far? Yeah, okay, good. So the church actually is declining rapidly in this country. The religious, unaffiliated are on the rise. We're about to see that. Can you go back and turn this down a little bit? Thanks. In fact, and the workers, which is the church, people involved in ministry, people to reach those who are lost, are few. In fact, the last census showed us, this was shocking to me, I did not know this, that there are only 11 churches for every 10,000 people in our country. Now, that was shocking to me because I kind of felt like there's churches everywhere, right? Does you feel that way? But there's only 11 churches for every 10,000 people. That means that if every single person in our country was reached, that every church would have almost 1,000 people in it. And that's not the case. The case actually nationwide is that 60% of local churches have less than 100 people on Sunday morning. 35% of churches have less than 500. So 95% of the churches in this country right now meeting this morning have less than 500 people meeting in them. That's the case in this. So the workers are few. The churches are not enough to meet them. One of the things that I showed you guys this a few months back, but we're going to look at it again today. This is from ARDA, which is a site that collects data, and this is our region. So this is Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware. It's I think a 25-mile around the Philadelphia city limits, as well as the city of Philadelphia. This is the religious traditions reported in the last census. So. I know you can't see it. See these little tiny ones way over here? These little tiny ones? These are Protestants within our area. Okay? And as we move this way, the purple are mainline Protestants. This little one you can't even see, these are Orthodox Christians. This light blue one, these are Catholics. People have reported they're Catholic. This small one right here, this is people that say that their religious tradition is something other than Christianity. And then this really big one here. These are people that claim no belief system whatsoever. Now, whether we assume that the rest of these people actually are followers of Jesus, except these ones that are other, is another question altogether, because this is just a check of a box. Okay? But what we can see here is that this is 2,700,000. If you add up all the rest of these combined, we're not there. That's the reality. That's where we're living. And this isn't some, other place out in the middle of the country. No, this is where you and I work, play, and do life every single day. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And here today, it's Pentecost. It's Pentecostal Sunday. It's the day that we celebrate the birth of the church in this country. In the world, actually. And we're looking at what Jesus said after the birth of the church, which was go and make disciples. In the Wesleyan Church, your pastor here, churches all over the country, regardless of denomination, believe the only way this is going to happen is through the word multiplication. Multiplication. Now, some of you are good at math, so it's all right, no. I'm right there with you. Multiplication. So today, I just wanted, if you would bear with me, I wanted to talk to you about the principle of multiplication. Can we do that? You don't have a choice anyway, you're already here. So, the principle of multiplication is this. Now, this is option one. Option one is you have a really good evangelist, and he's the green guy up there. Okay? And he's preaching to all these thousands of people. In fact, we'll call him Billy. Okay? There's a guy 50 years ago. We'll call him Billy. And Billy preaches to 1,000 people every single day of his life. Preaches to 1,000 people every single day of his life. And as a result, a few people out of those 1,000 are able to grow in their faith enough where they would be able to pass it on to somebody else. Okay? Now, if this is the church's model for growing the church, statisticians say, this is stuff that I couldn't figure out on my own, that it will take, remember, one person, 1,000 people a day for his entire life, 15,000 years for the entire world to come to know Christ. What do you think about that? Is that a good option? No, I don't think so either. Now, this is the principle of multiplication. One guy, we'll call him Paul. How's that sound? And he finds this other guy, we'll call him Timothy. And Paul takes everything that he knows, his relationship with Jesus, and he pours into Timothy for an entire year until Timothy reaches the place where he's a fully devoted follower of Jesus. And then Timothy finds somebody else, and he pours into him for the next year. In the meantime, Paul is able to find somebody else during that same year. He's able to pour into him or her. Are you with me so far? Okay? And this process continues. They become full devoted followers of Jesus. They pour into somebody, allowing Timothy and Paul to pour into somebody else. Okay? 1 year at a time, over and over again. Now, if we keep this going until we're like this, you know how long it would have taken if this would have happened from the beginning the church was launched on Pentecost, to reach the entire world with Jesus Christ and have fully devoted followers of Jesus. 37 years. 37 years. Now, it didn't happen, obviously, but that's the principle of multiplication. That as followers of Jesus, if we invest ourselves in the lives of somebody else until they become followers of Jesus, fully devoted, and they can do what Paul wrote to Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:2, the things you have heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, pass on to others who will be able to teach others also. That's the multiplication principle. So, the church, I believe it's not hard to see that we need to embrace a multiplication mindset. And I believe this mindset was present in Acts 2. I believe it was present in the early church. We see this in shortly after the apostles come and preach and 3,000 are added. They've embraced a multiplication mindset. One of the places we see this is not too long after Acts 2 in Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5 tells us that the apostles performed many signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers met together in Solomon's colonnade. So this is what happened after 3,000, just a few days after Pentecost. And so they all gathered in. The apostles were performing signs. They were doing evangelism, and people started to meet in Solomon's colonnade. So up there on the top right, that's the temple, and that's where the Jews would have gone. And this area around it was Solomon's colonnade. It kind of inside of it looked like this. It was just like this hallway. They would all meet in there. And so you can understand now when you see that, why the Jewish leaders were kind of getting annoyed early in Acts with the apostles. Because right outside where they were meeting, where they were trying to do their temple thing, all these people were meeting in the hallway. I don't know, I would feel pretty crummy if I was trying to do something in here and everybody was out meeting in the hallway. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the situation that was going on. But Acts 2 tells us that more and more men and women, or Acts 5 tells us that more and more men and women believed in the Lord, and they were added to their number. And as a result, people brought the sick in the streets and laid them in the beds and the mats, and so that at least Peter's shadow might fall on some of them as he passed by. They were hoping for healing. And Acts 5:14 tells us the crowds gathered also from the towns around Jerusalem. This was such an amazing thing that people started gathering from all over, bringing their sick and those tormented by impure spirits, and all of them were healed. Acts 5:14, back to the first passage, it says, more and more men and women believed in the Lord and were added to their number. The apostles believed in a multiplication mindset. More and more and more and more and more. They could not wait to have more and more people come to know this. More and more people come to know Christ. They wanted to add and add and add every single day. They wanted the church to multiply. So why don't we see that in our churches? Why don't we see that in our country? Why do we see from the Arda that red bar so high? And the bar on the other end, where we lie as an evangelical Protestant church, so low, even where we live. I believe it's because the multiplication mindset is unnatural. It really is. It's not a natural thing. We don't naturally do it. It's not something we want to do because it requires a lot of us. But what I want to do today is I want to just talk about for a short time three dynamics of a multiplication mindset that I believe if we embrace these three dynamics, at least in our corner of the kingdom, that God will start to multiply disciples who make disciples who make disciples here in our church. The first thing is this. Multiplication mindset, it keeps going when things get tight. Now let's be honest, things get tight sometimes, don't they? Right? Budgets can get tight. And when budgets get tight, we start to pull in, try to protect, try to make sure that we keep this ship afloat. That's one thing we do. Space can get tight. We don't have it in here today, but if space got tight, we'd have to, kind of cram in and we wouldn't be comfortable. Time commitments get tight. I don't know about you, I'm just here with you. How many people here think, oh my goodness, my days are so busy? And I've said this before, but it's true. I mean, I've always thought my entire life, and when I got retired, I would be like, do nothing all the time. And the retired people that I know in this church are busier than some of the working people. Yeah. So time gets tight. People resources get tight. There's only so many of us to do so many things. I get that. But when you have a multiplication mindset, when you have a mindset that this is the call on our hearts, this is the only way we're going to reach the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ, we don't need to be stopped by obstacles. We need to go over them. We need to go through them. We need to overcome them because of one thing. Because we believe in our heart of hearts what Jesus said, that no matter if there's 99, if one sheep is lost, they are worth putting everything on hold for until we find them. And if as a church we believe that, then regardless of what the obstacles are, our pursuit of finding them, finding that one lost person and bringing them to Christ needs to be above all. Secondly, a multiplication mindset makes room for just one more. I think it's not an obvious thing, but I don't think the disciples anywhere in Acts said after they reached 3,000 people on the day of Pentecost, oh, that's great, we've got a church of 3,000, let's take it easy. We're done. Look at this. We've got one day, 3,000 people, church is done, we're good, we multiplied the church. No, they didn't. They kept going. But the problem is, in churches in America, it's not multiplication that drives our mission. It's usually actually fear of scarcity. The scarcity mindset overtakes the multiplication mindset. What do you mean by that, Pastor? I mean, scarcity mindset says this: if we grow, if we have more and more people, things will change. The church will become too big. I may lose the seat that I've sat in for the last 20 years, and that would be terrible. Or the church might get too shallow because we're going to have all of these new believers here, and the pastor's going to have to preach messages to people that don't know Christ yet, that aren't far along in their faith, and I'm not going to be fed anymore. Someone may take my job in the church. This ministry or that ministry has been something I've done for a long time. If we have new people, I might not be able to do it anymore. None of these things happen here at Chai. I'm just talking about other churches down the road. Or there may be too many people in our small group or our Sunday school. We have this scarcity fear that if the church expands rapidly, that we're going to lose the church that we know is home. But the multiplication mindset must overcome the scarcity mindset. That's why when I train small group leaders, and I say to them, listen, when you start a small group, the one thing you need to do is you need to take a chair in your house in the space that you're at, and you need to set it there. And it needs to be the open chair, and every single week you need to point to it, and you need to say, this chair is open. And we all need to pray about how we're going to fill this chair. Because until this chair is full, we are not doing what God's called us to do. And then as soon as it's full, you find another chair. And until there's not enough room anymore. Chai, there's a lot of open chairs in this room today. Not only is there an awful lot of open chairs, but our hearts have to be open to the reality of the open chair. And not say to God, the person that fills this seat next to me has to look this way, be this way, got it all figured out. No, we just need to get them in the seat so they can learn who Jesus is. And He'll bring about the transformation. Amen? Amen. None of us is where we are when we met Him. He's the one that's going to do it, but our role is to fill the chair. You know, when I had my second child, I was terrified. When I had Madeline, I was terrified because I had Lydia. And when I had Lydia, I loved her. And I couldn't imagine loving anything more than Lydia in my entire life. I really couldn't. I doted on her. I still do. She was the apple of my eye. She was a beautiful little girl. When I had the second child, I was like, there's no possible way. There's no way that my heart is going to be big enough to love Madeline the same. There's going to have to be a favorite. You know? But you know what? It didn't happen that way. My capacity to love expanded when I had the second kid. See all the head shaking. You know what I'm talking about. When you have a multiplication mindset in Christ's church, our capacity to love whoever is far from Jesus will expand when the open chairs are full. Believe in the new family. Remember that family model I was talking about? Third, the multiplication mindset makes multiplying the primary mission of the church. The primary mission of the church, to multiply. And this was something that was not last in 1 AD. And listen to me, I'm only preaching this because I truly believe that the Church of Jesus Christ is the only hope for the world. I am completely broken about what's going on in London. I'm completely broken about what I see on the news. This is literally life and death. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic about it, but it's the truth. And the only hope for this world is Jesus Christ. And if we are a church, our primary mission has to be to multiply ourselves. The first century church did this. We have stories about women's right in the first century. Do you realize that as soon as the Church of Jesus Christ was formed, women's rights in the Roman culture were expanded beyond they had ever seen before? They weren't where they are now, but they were like they were never before. Women's rights in our own country were won because of the Church of Jesus Christ. Our own Wesleyan Church was one of the very first denominations in the entire country that ordained women. The church has been on the front of that all along. Secondly, abolition of slavery. Paul wrote in Galatians 3, there is neither Jew nor Greek or Gentile, slave or free. We are all one in Jesus Christ. And though it took a long time for that to happen, the abolition of slavery happened through the Church of Jesus Christ. It was the hope of the world. It brought transformation to the culture. In addition to that, civil rights. The civil rights movement in this nation was brought about by the church. A lot of the people that died in the early civil rights movement were pastors and Christians because they believed in Jesus and they believed in equality found in Him. Medical health care. Medical health care is another one. The church was one of the primary places to care for people. And once the church was expanded by the Roman Emperor in 300 AD, it became the national church. Churches at the same time became the first places that people took people to be cared for. And then, after that, a lot of the early hospitals were built by the church. The church brings about life transformation, but also cultural transformation. One of the experiences I heard about that caused me to weep when I was in seminary was this idea of the Chaga tribe in Tanzania. I had a professor, his name was David Shank, and he was a missionary for many, 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 many years. And you can Google him and watch him on YouTube, he's incredible. He's an incredible man, he's in almost his 80s now. And he told this story about the Chaga tribe of Tanzania, where the German missionaries took the scriptures to the Chaga tribe. They went and lived with them, and they said, unlike other missionaries before them that wanted to colonize, that wanted to change the culture, make them look European, make them look a certain way, dress a certain way, they said, we're not going to do any of that. All we're going to do is we're going to learn their language, we're going to translate the Gospel of Matthew into their language, we're going to leave it with the tribal leaders, and we're going to leave. And it was one of these moments in the missions history where the church wasn't sure what this was going to do, how this new method was going to work. They left the Gospel of Matthew with this tribe. And after they left the Gospel of Matthew with this tribe, the leaders, for a few years, they came back, having no idea what was going to happen. And when they met with the tribal leaders afterwards, this is what they found out. They found out that after a couple of the leaders read the Gospel of Matthew and found out who Jesus Christ was, together, without anybody telling them anything besides the Holy Spirit, they said, you know what? You know, this thing that we've got going on in our culture where the men beat their wives, that's got to stop. Because in light of Jesus Christ, we can't do that anymore. That doesn't make any sense. And then they continued to read the Gospel of Matthew, and they said, you know, this idea of alcoholism and men getting drunk, it was a culture where they used that to worship their pagan gods, and alcoholism was rampant. They said, we can't do that anymore. That's sinful. We don't want to be perpetual drunks, and so that went away. And then they thought, you know what, this other thing that we've got going on here, this female circumcision, which I'm sure you've heard about in African tribes. They said, this is not what God would want us to do in light of Jesus. Let's stop that. And you know what? Our homes are a mess, and our bodies are a mess. We're not using cleanliness enough, and that's why we have disease and everything. And in light of Christ, we need to be cleaner. And one thing after another, the German missionaries just stood there in front of these tribal leaders, weeping, because they could not believe not only did this tribe come to know who Jesus Christ was, but their lives were transformed in every single way because of the gospel of Jesus. This is the God we worship. And it happened not with anybody teaching them, just because the good news of Jesus Christ was translated in their culture. Now, we have English Bibles everywhere, but the church is the Church of Jesus Christ, translating the good news of Jesus Christ to our postmodern culture. To those outside the faith, truly feel like they understand what we're all about. Because the multiplication mindset says our primary mission is to make sure that what God could do in the Chaga tribe, what God did in 1 AD, can happen in our community. So, the Wesleyan Church has said that we as a church should celebrate every time a disciple makes a disciple. Remember that multiplication principle? And a church multiplies itself until the Wesleyan Church has a transforming presence in every zip code. Until transformation is brought in every zip code in the country. Because just like the multiplication principle with Billy and Paul, churches can do the same thing. We can rely on one church to take care of all of these zip codes and try to reach all of these zip codes around them. And sure, we may get a few people, or we can have one church raise up a group of people that go into a new zip code and plant a new church. And as that church grows, they send out somebody else to plant a new church. And so on and so forth until the church expands all over the country so there's a transforming presence in every place. What the church has realized, what we have realized as a church, what the Wesleyan Church, and folks, I'll tell you this is the truth. If you believe me, I'm telling you this is true. The build it larger and they'll come from every zip code is not going to work anymore. It's going to have to be us sending people to every zip code to reach people where they live, translating the culture into their community. And so that's what this day is all about. It's about us as a church understanding the multiplication mindset, but also understanding that there are teams of people all over the United States of America waiting this morning for there to be enough funds for them to be sent into a new zip code to take that zip code with the good news of Jesus Christ and bring about transformation like the church has done time and time again. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. And I would like to know what would be said if we could say 5, 10 years ago, 10 years from now, that China United embraced a multiplication mindset. That not only did we partner with people to go and send people into every zip code, but we became a church where one person invested in one person until that person could invest in somebody else. That's what Church Multiplication Sunday is about. Now this morning, and if you haven't caught on, that's what we're going to be pursuing a lot. Because it's who I am. Now this morning we have an opportunity to do the other thing. We have an opportunity to help and support. I put out emails and talked about it last week. Help and support those teams of people that are wanting to go into a new zip code to bring a transforming presence and bring about transformation into that place. There are church planting teams ready to do that today. And so as we come up for communion this morning, I have this basket up here. And if you've been led to do so, if you wish to give, 100% of it's going to go to these teams, to these multiplying teams. Use your mission envelope. There should be a couple in each of your things. If you want to put cash in, that's fine. But if you want to use an envelope, that's great too. Put your missions envelope in this basket when you come up for offering this morning. Now, if you want to know more about what this offering is going to do, what this offering is meant to do, there's a video here I want you to watch before we go into the time of communion.
In farming, a great harvest starts with the simple, unselfish act of planting seeds. In the same way, you have the opportunity to give selflessly and multiply the church. Every changed life, every thriving church, every restored community begins with the generosity of willing people. There is a movement of God's Spirit-filled believers sowing new churches everywhere. Your gift today makes the difference in bringing someone closer to God. Your family, your neighbors, your community, and beyond. God will use your gift to change lives, to help disciples make disciples, and reap an untold harvest. Give freely. See God multiply His church.